Hello and welcome to episode 1 of the Ancient Esoterica podcast. This podcast has been 6 years in the making, and I am so grateful to be finally filming episode 1 today. So this episode is pretty much just going to be an overview of my story, who I am, what I do, and how I got to be where I am in this place here and now. So on September 4th, 2024, the day that I am filming this. So we'll start by going back to childhood and to where my journey began as a youngin'. So I grew up in the North Shore of Massachusetts, and my parents split up when I was very young, when I was just 4 years old. So I've always grown up in a split household, going between mom and dad's house. And on top of that, both sides of my family, after splitting up, were really in a bit of an ongoing war, you could say, where both sides hated each other. And when I would go over one parent's house, it would, talk a lot of crap about the other parent and what they're doing wrong and how horrible they are. And then I'd go over the other parent's house and it would kind of be the same thing. And throughout my childhood, I'm going to just talk briefly about this stuff because this isn't what I really want to talk about. What I really want to talk about is more recent stuff. So just an overview. So as a kid, I was always really fascinated in ancient civilizations, aliens, anything metaphysical, paranormal. I grew up very, very close to Salem, Massachusetts, the witch city. And I feel like that introduced me to paranormal activity and the metaphysical side of life at a very early age. And so growing up, when I lived with my dad starting in 3rd grade, we always had very spooky happenings happen to us, lived in very haunted houses, apartments, you could say. And I remember I must have been like 8 or 9, maybe 10 years old around this time. My mom and dad were actually getting back together. They kind of would go through periods where they didn't hate each other as much and they could be friendly and maybe get back together. But at this time, my mom was sleeping over my dad's house, which was an apartment up on a hill in Saugus, Massachusetts, if you've ever heard of it. But my mom was sleeping over and she was woken up in the middle of the night completely paralyzed with this entity thing on top of her, sucking the life out of her. And it looks like a wolf, she said, and she couldn't scream, she couldn't make any noise. And that, I didn't hear this story until a few years ago, but that was the vibe of a lot of these places that we were living in, was there was a very dark, evil presence there, spiritual, not really seen, just a feeling. And another thing that happened in this apartment, I was sleeping, I guess, when this happened, but at 3 a.m., if you've ever seen Paranormal Activity 2, there's a scene in that movie where all the cabinets and the doors in the kitchen just open and all of a sudden. And that happened in this apartment at 3 a.m. All the cabinets, everything opened and everything flew out of the cabinets and smashed and broke on the floor. Somehow I didn't hear this, but it woke up my dad, and I think he had a girlfriend over or something. This was either before or after him and my mom completely separate. He wasn't no player or anything. But I always grew up kind of just knowing that there was this other side of life, that there was this spiritual side, whether it was dark or whether it was light and positive. I just always knew there was more to life than just this realm. And throughout the rest of my childhood and teen years, I had a lot of other spooky occurrences. I moved a little further north to Hamilton, Massachusetts, and one time one of my friends was sleeping over and we heard this demon growl. And we had a fan going. I always slept with a fan going for the white noise. And she asked me to turn the fan off because she was hearing it, but I wasn't. And we thought maybe it was the fan. And so shut it off. And all of a sudden in the freaking corner of my room was this big growl. And we were like, get we out. And we ran upstairs. tried to wake up my dad, and he was like, oh, it's just a frog. No, it wasn't. And I know that that was just him protecting me, and he definitely did the right thing by not feeding more into that fear, because he didn't tell me about any of these hauntings or happenings or anything until I was probably close to 16 years old, which again, I think was the best thing he could have done to protect me, because that would have caused me to spiral more into a fear rather than a just like, I'm just not going to question it, which is where I was at for most of my childhood, was just kind of like not questioning things, accepting things as they are. Even if I was curious about things, it's funny, I growing up had a cousin who asked way too many questions, which annoyed me as a little kid. So I kind of took that as a lesson to not question things too much, which I think served a purpose for me in my younger years. But so through my teen years, there was always these little spooky things that happened, whatever. And at the same time, I always felt like the black sheep, like an outcast, sort of like an alien on Earth, because I just didn't really understand a lot of what people did and what was popular, and a lot of mainstream trends. Even like TV shows like Jersey Shore. I remember in 7th grade, I pretended to like Jersey Shore because all the popular people in school liked Jersey Shore. And because one time they were all talking about it in a science class, and I remember they asked me who my favorite character was, and they were like making fun of me, saying like, oh, she probably loves Snooki, or oh, she loves Polly D, like, and I didn't understand what they were talking about. And I felt so weird and so like stupid and bad for not watching this mindless show that is just garbage. But I remember I went home and I like tried watching it and tried researching it. And it was kind of cool, because my stepmom wound up sharing with me that she grew up on the Jersey Shore, like going there on vacations right down the street where they filmed the show. So that was kind of a cool connection as a result of this little thing I was going through. But it was really challenging for me, because I was always really fascinated in history and sort of like just what got us to where we are now, like learning about the stories of World War I and World War II, learning about the Holocaust, and all of these intense things that, not that I loved these things, but they just really fascinated me to learn about human nature, human history, the popular events of our past, and all of that stuff. And that is definitely a soul level passion of mine, because still to this day, my absolute favorite thing in the entire world to research is ancient civilizations, and to really look beyond the stories we've been told about our human history, because I've always felt this, and I now see through my research that there is so much more beyond this like textbook reality that we've been fed through school and through media and just that mainstream narrative. There's so much more beyond that. And so I also have this core memory. I don't really remember how old I was. It must have been either 8th grade or freshman year of high school, when I was sitting on my couch in our house in Hamilton, and I was watching Ancient Aliens, and I loved it. And now I will say too, I lived full time with my dad starting in 3rd grade, and he was the primary influence in my life, because my mom was kind of just on her own path doing her thing. She had a couple more kids, so she was kind of like tied up with that. But my dad was a big influence on me, and he loved history, and he loved fantasy and movies. Like, some of my favorite movies growing up was Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. We were such nerds for those movie franchises. And I see now how that really helped to awaken and blossom this just fascination in more, and in magic and fantasy and these other worlds and other ways of being and life paths, I guess. But so my dad introduced me to Ancient Aliens, and we would watch a lot of History Channel together, Discovery Channel. Shark Week was my jam. And I just really, truly was so passionate about anything that wasn't mainstream. Like I couldn't hang with a lot of the TV shows that my girlfriends were watching. And at this time, which was when I was going from middle school into high school, was when I really started resonating more with guy friends than girlfriends. I really just felt like such an alien in a lot of girl groups. And girls were just so mean in my middle school and high school that I really connected more with guys because I wanted to adventure and have fun and be silly and make jokes and watch cool movies and stuff like that. And girls just weren't interested in that. They just yeah, and I'm not going to go too much into that, but so to tie into the original point I was making about Ancient Aliens, I remember sitting there watching this show and thinking like, oh, this is such a core vivid memory. It's like I can put myself on that couch right now. I was asking myself, what is wrong with me? Like, why do I like this stuff and no one does? And I really saw it through a lens of like negative, like what was wrong with me? Why am I like this? Why am I not like these other people? And at the same time, all I wanted in life from middle school, probably starting in 6th grade, maybe even, no, 5th grade, definitely 5th grade, until I got to college, was all I wanted was to be popular. All I wanted was to be in that popular crowd. And I can see what that's rooted in was I really just wanted that feeling of being loved and accepted and appreciated and wanted. And I didn't feel that in my home life because I had a stepmom at this time who I really did not have a good relationship with. And there was just a lot of jealousy and a lot of separation. Like, you know, they'd hide food from me. They would drive my stepsister to the bus, drive right by me walking to the bus. Just a lot of separation and a lot of just exile and exclusion. And I now see, looking back, that I needed these lessons because who I am as a soul, upon looking into my soul blueprint within the Akashic Records and my manifesting blueprint, I actually thrive in inclusivity. So I'm a very inclusive person. And that has really been solidified within me through these experiences of exclusion. And I've done a lot of Akashic Records work on myself. I am a certified soul realignment practitioner, which is an Akashic Records reading modality. And these readings have really uncovered that almost all of my blocks within me and all of the wounds that I am still working through and still holding on to happened because of me sort of either forcing myself or being forced into inauthentic energies. Meaning being forced into situations where I was excluded, where it's in my nature to be included and to be inclusive. So all of these things served as blocks for a while, but I really do believe that it is within our blocks and within our greatest challenges that our greatest gifts are unlocked and are seeded, that the seeds of our gifts are within our greatest challenges and our greatest suffering and traumas. So it's been a journey of uncovering this. You know, I suffered so greatly in high school because I didn't understand what I was going through, and I was being forced onto these mainstream paths that just did not resonate at all. But I did it because it is what it is, and it's just the way things are, and it's what's expected of you. And now one of my biggest passions is to shatter that illusion that you do not have to do anything that does not serve you, that does not feel right in your heart. Sometimes we do have to push ourselves if we're met with a little fear or resistance or anxiety to step out of our comfort zone. But that does not mean you have to force yourself to fit a standard and to fit a mold and to go down a path that does not serve you. You can choose to align with your true nature and to choose the highest path of your greatest expansion. And basically what that looks like is just knowing thyself, knowing who you are, knowing your worth, that we are all inherently worthy, and that everything is inherently neutral and it only has the meaning that we give it, and by following our passions and following our heart. we all have a dream that's within us. And this is the bulk of the work that I do, is helping us to unlock these dreams within us and to know who we are at soul level and who we are at our core, and to really unlock our authentic presence and work in this world. And so, again, going back, I sitting on the couch watching Ancient Aliens, what the heck's wrong with me? I always would find myself coming back to my core during times of isolation and exile, meaning when I would have falling outs with friends, or I would be spending a lot of time alone, or I would be really depressed. That's when I would really come back to my love of photography and movies and videography. You know, I started many YouTube channels when I was younger that got me in a lot of trouble, actually got me banned from the internet. This is a cool story that I kind of skipped over a bit. So in 6th grade, I started my first YouTube channel. And this is very, very significant to my life journey, because in 6th grade is also when my trauma really happened, like 5th, 6th grade. And that's also when my eyesight started to go. So I started having trouble seeing the board, probably starting in 2nd grade, but it was very minimal, very, very minimal. It would just show up on the eye exams they'd give us in school, that I would be a little challenged in farsight. But then in 5th grade, I remember sitting there looking at the board thinking, wow, I can't see anything. 6th grade too, it kind of built upon that, and it was like, wow, I can't see crap. Had to sit close to the board, you know, that kind of stuff. And so in 6th grade, I also started this podcast. This is the podcast. I started this YouTube channel where I was just filming silly, dopey videos with my friends, playing in the playground, you know, just kind of whatever. But that's when my love for YouTube really was born, and my drive and passion to be a YouTuber and to make content. And this is also when my love for editing photos was birthed, and just photography, and just all of those creative expressions, which are still very sacred to me. And so my dad found my YouTube channel and absolutely freaked out, which again, I understand now, because his little 12-year-old, 11-year-old daughter was being broadcasted for any creep, any weirdo to see. And he only saw the shadow side of that like, I need to protect her. So I got in so much trouble. It literally still says on this old YouTube channel, sorry guys, got in trouble, no more videos, in the channel description. It's so cute. So I got shut down, and I actually was not allowed to go on the internet until I really moved out of my house. My sister had access to the Wi-Fi and even had her own user on our computer that had access to the internet, but they figured out a way to ban me from it. Again, the exclusion wound cutting deep, cutting me off, because also now I see that YouTube is such a big part of my purpose. And it was like back then I was totally put in a cage and cut off from pursuing my purpose. And that's when my eyesight started to deteriorate, and that's when my depression really started to kick in. And then in 8th grade, around the time when I was just deeply hating on myself for being different and just wondering what the heck was wrong with me, that's also when my suicidal ideations began. And the first time that I actually attempted to was in 8th grade. And that wound has been deeply seated within me, and correlates to this feeling of being trapped and being unable to pursue my purpose and to create and show up in the ways that are authentic to me. And so, you know, as I mentioned, watching Ancient Aliens, being cut off from YouTube, even I would go over friends' houses and would just get in so much trouble for not I don't even know why, like for going on my friend's trampoline because it scared my dad, and my dad was said that trampolines were so dangerous, would call me a see you next Tuesday on the phone, you know, leave me nasty voicemails. It was a shit show. And my dad is a very strong personality. He is like the truth seeker. So when he's blindsided by his shadows and by fear of losing control or fear of fear of losing control, he gets really aggressive and really like holds on and just, he's a Leo sun. So he's a very, very just Leo vibes. And so that was definitely a challenge because he was out working 16-hour work days running a trucking company that he owned and he built himself. That was about an hour from our house, so we'd have to drive an hour to and from work because we were living in a more rural area. And all the responsibility and the burden of his business was his. So again, starting around like 7th, 8th grade, I did not have a connection with him or with my stepmom, who really just, it felt like she absolutely hated me and just wanted to get rid of me. And that rubbed off on my stepsister, who would really treat me like crap. And all at the same time, my little sister Katie was born, who is just such a special soul to me, and we had so much fun. So it wasn't all bad, but there was just a lot of pain. And it was because of, again, not being able to pursue my passions, my purpose. And another point that I was making a little earlier on was my deep desire to be popular. And I feel like a lot of girls especially struggle with this, that we're kind of fed these standards that we feel like we have to strive to reach. Like, I even remember my hair part is right here, and all the girls would straighten their hair, which I didn't have until my friend actually gifted me a straightener, like her old broken one she gave me. And they all had like the poof, where it was like if you straightened your hair and then like flipped the part, they had that like little poof hair, and my part was just flat. And I hated that. And I remember like sitting in front of my friends' mirrors, trying to get my hair to do that, trying to get myself to look the way they did. And it just wasn't happening. And that spiraled me into an even deeper rejection of self, and actually developed a little bit of an eating disorder, because at this time, again, this was all like 8th grade, freshman year, kind of that time period. And at this time I developed a bit of an eating disorder, which was in the form of I felt like I didn't deserve to eat. And food was hidden from me at this time. And my parents claimed it was for my baby sister, Katie, so we wouldn't eat all of her snacks, but my stepsister was allowed to eat the snacks and the food too. So, I was cut off from food. I was cut off from living my purpose. Drinks that I enjoyed, nobody would buy them for me. Where was I? Yeah. So food was hidden from me, snacks, all that stuff. And I wasn't even bought drinks that I liked. The only drink options that I had was 2% milk, which I hated. I only liked 1%. Iced tea, which I hated. Water, which was the only thing I drank, or Tang, which is my dad's drink. It's like that orange drink that like astronauts drink and stuff. So I was very much cut off from anything that brought me pleasure. So this also kind of caused me to develop like, develop a belief that I'm not even worthy of food, which I'm still working through to this day. Still, when I get into financial struggles and someone has to buy me food, I shut down and I say like, I don't feel like I am worthy of food. Even though this person is like offering to buy me food, it's still something that I'm working through for sure from this time period. But so I remember texting a friend when I was in 8th grade, saying how I'm hungry, but I don't want to eat, or saying I just ate and I'm so angry at myself that I did because I don't deserve it. And I remember him texting me saying, geez, sounds like you have an eating disorder. And that's when I was kind of like, whoa, what the? And that validation, I don't want to say he helped me to spiral into this more, but that really showed me like, oh damn, like I am sad and there is so much wrong with me. And like, yeah. So moving on, I just really struggled and just felt like a caged animal, but at the same time, almost like a caged animal on display, that I existed to entertain others, and that was the only way I received attention and affection and love, was when I was being who other people wanted me to be. And that also tied into this popularity aspect that I just didn't have many friends. I sat alone at lunch the majority of my school career. And when I did sit with people, I felt out of place, and it felt like I shouldn't be there and that I wasn't worthy to be there. And I was only there because people felt bad for me. And so this continued through middle school, through high school. And I, wound up getting my first boyfriend sophomore year of high school. That lasted about a year and a half, and then got another boyfriend. And there was so much more about this, but I want to get to more future things. And so, yeah, senior year of high school, my dad and my stepmom did not go to my graduation because my mom was going to be there. And if that doesn't tell you the dynamic between my dad's side and my mom's side, that's it. They've even told me that they won't come to my wedding and my baby shower if my mom's there, still to this day. And that's on them. Like, that's like one of their things, whatever. They've isolated themselves. I still keep in touch with my dad and stepmom and them, but they're on their own path, And so after my graduation, my dad pretty much just cut ties with me. Didn't talk to me, put all my stuff outside. And I didn't know why, but I found out only a few years ago that it was because his company got taken out from under him by his own parents, my grandparents, and they were left with nothing, and they had to completely restart. So they started a doggy daycare, which they still do, and they're very successful with that. But I had to move back in with my mom, and I texted my dad on holidays, birthdays, and no response. And that just destroyed me and furthered this kind of suicide-y energy within me, because I truly didn't know what the heck I was doing here. And I didn't know what the point of me being here was. But there was a part of me that knew I had to keep going, because I reached my breaking point many times where I almost jumped off cliffs and took a bunch of pills or whatever. But there was always something that just stopped me, and here we are today. And so graduated, moved in with my mom, and this is when I started partying hardcore, because I actually didn't drink alcohol, didn't smoke weed, didn't do anything until I graduated high school. But this is when it all started full force. And there is such a positive to my partying phase, because although it did cause me more pain and suffering, it helped me to fulfill this dream of mine to finally become popular. Because I was at Salem State University in Salem, living there, dorming, and I made so many friends and was popular. And it was pretty easy to be popular because you just had to kind of look decent and go to all the parties and want to drink and want to smoke. That just made you popular by, just default. So continued on that path, went through a breakup while I was there. Boyfriend cheated on me with my best friend, caught them in the act. Crazy moment. But that was also a liberation point. When that happened, it was I was totally free, because that relationship was so toxic, so controlling, so bad for so long. And I just settled for it because I thought it was what I deserved and I didn't have anyone else. But then when that happened, it was just all right, see you later, we done. And then I got my first tattoo, which is so ironic. I thought this meant good vibes when I got it. And this was really my liberation point, because it was the first time I really did something just for myself because I wanted to. And I didn't even realize the meaning of this tattoo, because like I said, I thought it meant good vibes. I didn't even know what it meant. But now I see that it's the Om symbol, and it also represents the third eye, which I have a very, very strong third eye, and I actually have extra energetic resources and connections through my third eye, which I found out through my Akashic Records readings, that it's I have extra gifts and energy centered in this chakra, in this energy center. So it's no coincidence that I got this tattoo right when my liberation period began, which was February of 2016. That's when that breakup happened and this whole transition happened. And that's also when I really dove deep into partying. And at the same time, this depression was really rising within me. And when I would drink, I would go home to my dorm and I would just bawl my eyes out and be so angry. I would punch walls. I actually broke this pinky back in the day. You can see it's still a little crooked from punching walls, from this just anger and rage that was resulting from unexpressed grief. So, and this was all because of like my dad abandoning me and just that big, deep abandonment wound that was within me and that was trying to come out in any way that it could. And so I really dove into partying, but at the same time, this just turmoil was really rising up within me. And so this continued, you know, just this big party phase and really fulfilling my childhood dream of being popular. But I was able to really see how this lifestyle was kind of empty because everyone would really kind of just use each other for parties, and people would just so take advantage of you. If you had a car, if you had weed, if you had anything, people would just suck you dry for it, and in the college party crowd. And at the same time as all of this was happening, I didn't have a major at school. I was still going, but I was really just going there to live there. Like, that's why I went to college, was to have some place to live. And in the winter of 2016, my mom actually got fed up with me partying, even though she was doing and is still doing the same thing that I was doing back then. Really messed up and still definitely healing that as things come up. But yeah, she kicked me out and made me go live with my grandparents on my dad's side, who also were not talking to my father. So I think they took me in, and these were the grandparents who took all my dad's money and took his company out from under him. And I didn't know this. I had no clue at all. So they took me in and were basically trying to like rehabilitate me. I got a job at a car dealership. I left Salem State, or I got kicked out of Salem State because I failed out, actually. And I was living with them. And basically, I had to be home at 8 o'clock, which I got out of work at 5 o'clock, so I had no time to do anything. And they meant well, and they were doing the best they can with the consciousness that they had. But I really did need this like exploration phase and this partying phase, because it helped me to break out of that cage. I literally feel like I was a caged animal for so long that's why I went so crazy and wild when I finally broke out of that cage, because I was finally free. And so we'll say Christmas break of 2016 into 2017, I connected with a group of friends from the South Shore, from Hingham, Massachusetts. And it was through one of my friends from the North Shore who I worked with. She started dating a boy from down there. And she met all these boys through a Facebook group because some of them were going to the same college she was going to, which was UTampa in Florida. So over Christmas break, she was back. She was hanging out with all these new people. And I was sort of reaching this phase where I was distancing from Salem State. I saw the emptiness in that, like, just that lifestyle. And Salem is pretty ghetto at points, and I really was seeing a lot of that really shady ghetto side of Salem, so I just wanted to kind of distance from it. So I started going down to the South Shore and hanging out with all of these new people. And it was exactly what I needed in that moment, because I remember thinking back when I started hanging out with all these boys and girls, there were girls too, that, oh my gosh, like, this is the friend group that I've been looking for. We were so passionate about similar things. We loved the same music, which was everything for me, because music was always deeply sacred to me. And I always just didn't really resonate with a lot of the party music that was popular around 2015, 2016. And they listened to such good music. They listened to Mac Miller, but also a lot of classic rock and just really good vibes music. A lot of 90s rap, like Tupac and that stuff, Biggie Smalls, Kendrick Lamar, who I really, really took a liking to. We'll get into that in a little bit. But I just really connected with these people on the basis of we were all very similar in our passions. We loved drinking and partying, but with our group. We didn't really like the big scale parties because people would just trash things and be disrespectful. So we just had our very close-knit group of like 20 kids who would just find different places to party and drink and smoke and whatever, whenever we could. So this was such a pivot point because this is when I met my boyfriend, Sam. So we met at a bonfire at this beautiful woods spot down on the South Shore called Trip Hammer. My friends invited me and another friend of mine down to a fire, and we thought, you know what, screw it. Like, she had just gone through a breakup recently. I went through a breakup about a year prior, and we were both at this like new stage where we just wanted to meet new people. We weren't even interested in meeting boyfriends. We just like wanted to connect with a new group of people. And me and this friend had gone to high school together, and she was in college and I had left college, but you know, she went to a different school close by anyways. So we went down and I connected with this boy named Sam over our love for cars, and specifically like JDM cars, and our love for music. And so I remember we just talked the whole night. He even put his hand on my knee. Like, we just really connected. We exchanged numbers, and we're just talking every day since then. And we couldn't wait to see each other again. And Courtney kind of had an interest in some of the guys. Just had fun hanging out with them. Wasn't like, oh, I love them all, but just she had a lot of fun. So we started going down to Hingham a lot together. And we would go to whatever little parties or gatherings the boys would host. And she actually started getting very close with one of the Hingham boys at the same time that I started getting close with Sam. And so it was really just like such a quick connection, falling in love point. We met January 2nd and we started dating January 25th, I think. And he would come up and stay at Salem State as much as he could. I would go down to the South Shore and stay over wherever we were, you know, partying and stuff. It all really blossomed from there. And at this time I was living with these grandparents, and he had come up and we talked to these grandparents to convince them to let me move in with Sam, which I did. And we lived together in his parents' apartment in Hingham, in the shipyard in Hingham. Beautiful, beautiful apartment. And we just explored the South Shore together. We had fun every day. I learned so much about myself, and at the same time, this pain body within me, like all of my emotions from all my traumas in high school and college and all that, all started really rising up from within me. And it would come out in the worst times, like the most inconvenient times where I would just like throw a rage fit or just be so upset for no reason, and it would make everyone very uncomfortable. And I could pick up on that. I could pick up on the fact that it was my emotional turmoil was very uncomfortable for the people around me. And this proved to be very challenging for Sam too, because I think he was a very empathic and sensitive soul, and he just didn't know how to help me. So he started sort of distancing from me and spending more time with his friends. And I kind of messed up a little bit and was texting an ex in June of 2017. And I hid it for a while, and then when it came out, it wasn't good. So we almost broke up, but we didn't. And I remember Sam's mom even still talks to me about this when he was talking to her about the whole situation. And his mom was asking, well, you know, why don't you break up with her? And he like broke into tears and said, like, because I love her, and just cute little 19, 20-year-old love. So, but we stayed together and had such a fun summer, that summer of 2017. But I could feel there was something within me that was driving me to just get outside as much as I could, to spend as much time outside and with Sam. He actually wound up losing his job and started selling weed on the down low to just friends, you know, local clients. So that's what we did. We spent every day together, adventuring, doing that. And I just couldn't help this feeling that something was coming. Something was going to happen, and that I should really enjoy life as much as I could because things are going to change very soon. So then we get to August, specifically August 10th of 2017. So Sam bought a motorcycle in the end of July of 2017. He bought it for a couple $1,000s from a man on the Cape Cod, and started learning how to ride. At the same time, all of his friends started learning to ride. And this was the time when we kind of distanced from each other. We're trying to figure out where we were at, we were going to stay together, whatever. So August 10th comes around and we go out on a bike ride for a sunset bike ride before we're about to go to our friends' houses, because one of my friends was hosting a gathering that night and his friends were also hosting a gathering. So we were going to kind of go our separate ways after our bike ride, which you'll see we did wind up going our separate ways, in fact. So we were driving through Southfield in Weymouth, also called Union Point now. It's like a development complex. Driving down the road, we were checking out a house that his parents were building in this complex, and we were starting to make our way back around 6:45, 7 o'clock at night. Went through a rotary, keep going. It's a 2-lane road that we're on. So yeah, we went through this rotary, back onto the 2-lane road, stopped at a stoplight. Traffic went, the light turned green. We went, a truck turned in front of us, and we went, kept going, accelerating back up to the speed limit. When in front of us, an SUV randomly just cut a U-turn in the middle of the road across. He was in the right lane, we were in the left lane, and we were coming, and he had started slowing down, pulled into the right lane. We were still coming, and right when we were right at him, he just cut a U-turn without looking, without putting on a blinker. He tried to say he put on a blinker. He literally lied in court saying he put on a blinker when he didn't. And cut a U-turn, and the bike collided with that car, which, heavy. 2 holes were punctured in the bottom of the gas tank, so the bike exploded. And I was blown off the bike, and Sam was trapped under the bike, where he passed away from the impact of the car, because we later found out in court that he broke pretty much every bone in his body from that impact. And because I hit him and he took the brunt of the impact and I hit everything so perfectly, I had 0 internal damage. 0. Did not break a single bone. They thought I might have had a concussion maybe, but it wasn't ever really verified. And then the bike exploded and I was blown off the bike, landed on the ground, where I sat up and looked down and saw flames coming from my legs and said, holy shit, I'm on fire. And I started patting out the fire. And then I think I must have touched my face. That's why I have burns on my face. And I was just covered in hot, burning motor oil from the explosion of the gas tank, which was just igniting. So patted out the flames on my thighs, touched my face, and I just looked at my hands, and I remember I just saw just blood and just char. And that's when I realized, like, something's wrong. Not even when I saw the flames on my legs, just hands are bloody, something's wrong. And at that time, a man happened to be riding through the complex, and he pulled over and proceeded to help me. This man came up to me and said, you're going to be okay. He dragged me over to the grass. And at this time, I just kept saying, get Sam, help Sam. And this man didn't know what I was talking about, because they could only see me, and they didn't know there was another driver trapped under the flames. And when they finally did figure it out, they tried to get close with a fire blanket, but the flames, and I even remember when I was sitting patting the flames out on my legs, I was pretty far from the car from how I got blown off, but I could feel just the heat. Like, I remember the heat coming from the car. So they were trying to get close with a flame blanket, but they just couldn't, because the heat was just so strong that they had to wait for fire trucks, EMTs, all of that to arrive. So this man, like I said, pulled me over onto the side of the road. And at that time, a woman EMT happened to be driving through this complex, because you can cut through from one town to the other driving through this complex. It used to be an old Air Force base, And that's now being developed into homes, shops, sports comp fields, all that stuff. And so this woman happened to be driving through, and she was an off-duty EMT. And she said she never cuts through that way, and she was going out to get cat food, but something told her to go through there. Crazy, right? So she pulled up, and she said that as she was entering the complex, she saw this just mushroom cloud go up. And she kept driving towards it, and when she got to the scene, she saw the truck on fire and saw me on the side of the road. So she went over to help me, and I still believe that if she wasn't there and didn't know exactly how to hold my head and how to try to keep me conscious and how to send me off to the EMTs, who knows what could have happened. But so I remember seeing her in her curly hair, and I remember that is when all the pain hit me. And I just started screaming like, holy F, holy shit, it effing hurts. And I remember a part of me was sitting there thinking like, oh, like, why are you swearing so much? You're gonna make them uncomfortable with all your swears, where it's like, bro, you were literally just on fire, you're hurt, like, say whatever the heck you want. But yeah, just so funny where our brain goes when we're in those moments. And so that's when I started really screaming and all of that. And then my vision started to vignette. And at the same time, it's when I heard the sirens from the ambulance coming. So it's almost like on an unconscious level, I knew that I was safe. So I could kind of like let go. And that's when I blacked out. I don't remember getting into the ambulance. I don't remember anything else. I just remember my looking up at the sky and just my breathing kind of slowing and just relaxing, and just my vision just vignetting, like that Instagram filter where it just slowly fades to black. And that's when my coma dreams started. So I'm kind of feeling like I want to end this here and pick up my rebirth in episode 2 of the podcast. So pretty much where we're going to leave off, I just had my near-death experience, and I was being ushered into the ambulance to be rushed to Mass General Hospital, which was about 20 or 30 minutes north of this, where the accident happened. And these ambulance drivers, which I thought I was airlifted by helicopter to the hospital until the trial for the accident finally happened in 2022, where the ambulance drivers testified on the stand. And that was freaking amazing. Hearing how the only place they could find to put an IV was my foot. They had to put IVs in my feet because I was so badly burned everywhere else. And they had to crank the heat up in the ambulance and cover me with blankets, and just how everything they did, and the way they talked about it, you could tell they never forgot this moment, and that this was such a significant moment in their careers as, lifesavers. And it was just so beautiful just to hear these people testify in court how they saved my life and stuff. And like I said, we'll get into that in episode 2. But yeah, so I was on my way to Mass General, where I would enter into a coma. And that is where we will pick up with the next episode of the Ancient Esoterica podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing a little bit of my life story. It's always been a passion of mine to listen to other people's podcasts where they share their own life story and where they share their experiences and everything that made them who they are today. So I'm just so grateful to share my journey with you guys and to hopefully inspire you to look back on your past and to look for clues to your purpose and to who you are meant to be in this world, because that is really how I was able to step into my purpose, was by looking for the clues and recognizing them in my past, how I always loved ancient aliens, and I still do, and it actually played a major role in my spiritual awakening, and how I always was drawn to YouTube and was passionate about movies and fantasy and all of these metaphysical spiritual concepts and topics, and all of that has led to awakening my authenticity. And so To end things off, I'll share a little bit about my services and current offerings that I have available right now on my website, which is ancientesoterica.com. I'll leave a link in the description with all my resources and all of that stuff. But I am currently offering a coaching program called Awakening Authenticity that is designed to go into your soul blueprint within the Akashic Records, into your past lives, your astrology chart, and your Gene Keys profile. In addition to reflecting on your inner child connection and how connected you feel with your inner child, and also how connected you feel with nature. This program is pretty much a 9-week mentorship program with intentions and practices for each week to help you awaken your authenticity and thus step into your purpose. Because I don't even say I feel like I know that when we are being our authentic self, everything else falls into place. Like if we're struggling with money, the more we can know ourselves and know how we can show up and how we can create, we can start to attract money as a result of just being real and just being in our authentic frequency. And when you know yourself and you know who you are at soul level, diving into, things like the soul profile, Gene Keys, astrology, that really helps to solidify your knowing of who you are and to pursue passions that resonate with you, and to help us to really find our unique puzzle piece in the human experience, not just conform to these external standards that are placed upon us, or trying to please parents, or trying to pursue the careers that offer the most money, etc., etc. So it really is my biggest passion and joy to help others awaken their authenticity. So I created this 9-week program. I will link it in the description. If you would like to go on a 9-week journey of me unlocking your authenticity, I would love to connect with you and share more about the program. And I also offer a variety of Akashic Records readings. Like I said, I am a certified soul realignment practitioner. So in my signature soul reading that I offer, I share with you where in the galaxy your soul originates from. Like if you're a star seed, that kind of stuff, other planets you've spent lives on, past life stuff, but also how you are designed to show up and create and express energy in the human experience. Because I'll give you an example. For a while, I thought that because I can talk forever and because I love learning and talking, that's actually like my biggest curse. Like that's like my biggest downfall. But when I did the Akashic Records reading, I discovered that my primary energy center is the 5th energy center, which is all about expressing your truth and speaking and communicating and learning. And so it is literally in my divine nature to do the things that I've shamed myself the most for. And learning that has been the biggest permission slip for me to not necessarily like talk people's ear off and be like unbalanced in that sense, but to own that this is my gift and this is what I'm here to do. And this is what the Great Spirit designed me this is how Great Spirit designed me to show up and the role that I am designed to play in the human experience. Love that reading. It's a 20-page Google Doc that I type for you and deliver to you that you can keep forever. And I also offer psychic readings because I've been reading tarot for, 6 years now. Professionally for 5 years, but for myself, 6 years. That's so crazy. And yeah, so check out my offerings and all of the fun stuff on my website, because I also have a knowledge base that I release articles about so many different things, about the Matrix, shadow government, plant medicines, but also starseed origins, ancient civilizations, and just everything under the sun that is woo-woo and esoteric. So I definitely invite you to check out my website. And I am so looking forward to connecting with all of you more through this podcast and through so many other offerings and YouTube videos and all that. So I am sending you all so much love. Peace out and namaste.